In a galaxy long fractured by wars and alliances, the name Seraphis still carries weight. Once, her people floated above star empires like living gods, telepaths, seers, masters of grace and genetic perfection. But pride bred enemies, and time did the rest. Now only one remains, Zelia, the last daughter of Seraphis. Crowned not by ceremony, but by extinction, she sits alone on a throne carved from crystal and silence. She is not a relic. Zelia holds more power and thought than most do in fleets. Her gaze can fracture minds. Her lineage, unbroken across millennia, is now on the brink. Across the stars, power brokers grow anxious. A child from her blood could claim legacy, could unify or destabilize. And so, offers come, not of peace, but of possession. To prevent political chaos and preserve her bloodline, Zelia initiates the rite of unity. It is simple. Any being of age and may compete for her hand. But they will not win it through violence alone. The trials demand more intellect, resolve, empathy. Traits her people once revered. The first to arrive are predictable. A Threxian warlord whose ships eat suns. He challenges the right's combat trial with pride, only to fall when brute strength fails to see the second blade. A Karen mind weaver attempts to seduce her through shared dreams, but Zelia sees the hollow center of his intent. Even a high priest from the orange spiral kneels with a symphony of celestial harmonics. Sound waves meant to mimic love, but Zelia does not feel love in equations. One by one, the suitors fall, not from failure of skill, but failure of being. They see her as a prize, a vessel, a tool for legacy. Not one asks her what she wants. Not one sees her. The galaxy watches in fascination and discomfort. A woman, powerful and alone, turning down every power structure built to claim her. She becomes a symbol of sovereignty to some, of arrogance to others. Zelia ignores them all. Privately, the silence grows heavier. She speaks to no one of the ache beneath her skin, the echo of a people gone, the thrum of memory, the weight of legacy, the cold pressure of expectation. She begins to consider ending the rite. Perhaps extinction is nobler than dilution. Perhaps Seraphis should end with pride intact, unsullied by lesser blood. And yet, the rite remains open. A single cycle left before the crystal moons align and close the ancient laws forever. The galaxy counts down. Scholars debate who, if anyone, could satisfy the conditions. Armies prepare offers cloaked in ritual. Zelia waits, not for a man, not for salvation. She waits for something real, if such a thing even exists anymore. He arrived without ceremony, aboard a ship that looked like it had survived 10 wars too many. No entourage, no insignia, just a designation number and a human flag faded by solar glare. Commander Elias Rourke of Earth. Not a prince, not a diplomat. Just a soldier with scars no medtech bothered to erase. He wasn't on the list. The right's officials hesitated, but the rules were clear. Any being may enter. And so, Earth's lone candidate was allowed to step forward into the arena that had humbled emperors and disarmed psychics. The gathered elite watched with open disdain. Whispers of primitive and irrational species floated through the air like smoke. Elias didn't flinch. He didn't care about optics or tradition. He wore outdated combat armor and a grim expression. While others bowed or recited rehearsed oaths, he just looked up at Zelia and said, "You look tired of the circus." It was the first unfiltered sentence she'd heard in decades. The first trial began, combat. No weapons were chosen. The challenge was a crystalline beast programmed to react with perfect countermeasures. Others had used force. Elias used confusion. He moved erratically, feinted with broken rhythm, exploiting the AI's pattern recognition to trigger false responses. In under 3 minutes, the beast malfunctioned, tried to anticipate the unpredictable. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't refined, but it was effective. Zelia watched silently, her expression neutral, but something had shifted. A flicker, maybe curiosity. She tried to peer into his mind as she had with all the others, but Elias was unreadable. His thoughts were tangled, turbulent, too chaotic to track. Grief, duty, fragments of memories soaked in blood and loyalty. After the trial, they met briefly. Her words were sharp. "You are pain like armor. Do you think it makes you worthy?" You look her in the eye. "No, I'm still here, aren't I?" She wanted to dismiss him, to lump him in with the rest. But he didn't posture. He didn't try to impress. He simply existed, fully, painfully, honestly. For a race known for volatility and impulse, he was calm, restrained. There was depth under the surface, but not the kind engineered by status. This was shaped by survival, loss, and choice. Other contestants mocked him, said he was a pity act, a clown for entertainment. One called him the warm-blood pet with delusions of relevance. Elias didn't react. He ate alone, trained alone, and every day, when the schedule posted, his name remained. Zelia began watching him between trials, not as a candidate, but as a question. Why did his presence irritate the others so deeply? Why did their polished veneers seem brittle when he was near? She had not decided yet, but something told her this one would not be dismissed so easily. And in the silence of her own mind, something ancient stirred. Not desire, not yet, but recognition. The second trial demanded intellect, not of calculation, but of perspective. A multi-dimensional construct hovered in the trial chamber, a Seraphisian artifact known as the Venn Prism. No one had solved it in 700 years. The previous competitors had all followed the logical path, layering patterns and ancestral data to simulate compatibility. Elias ignored all of it. He stared at the construct for 20 minutes without touching it. Then, without asking permission, he disassembled one of the holographic arms from the display and rebuilt the entire structure from a different axis. He bypassed the intended design entirely. The judges protested. They called it vandalism, but the prism lit up in full synchronization. The pattern he created wasn't what was intended. It was better. Not refined, not traditional, but complete in its own strange way. Zelia stood and asked him why. Elias answered, "I've never cared for puzzles that only work one way. Life doesn't follow instructions. Neither do I." She found herself smiling before she realized it. The third trial began soon after, empathy. Each candidate was required to expose a formative memory through direct psychic link, unfiltered and raw. Most curated their memories, editing pain and discomfort to show only triumph and virtue. But Elias did not filter. He offered all. Zelia entered his mind and was pulled into chaos. It was the Battle of Arcturus. Explosions, screams, the smell of ozone and blood. She saw him dragging a wounded child, barely breathing, across a burning corridor, refusing to abandon her even as enemy fire shattered the walls around them. His team was gone. He'd been ordered to retreat. He didn't. He stayed until backup arrived hours later, barely conscious. She felt everything: his exhaustion, fear, anger, and the strange defiance that powered his every step. Not glory, not victory, just the stubborn, soul-deep belief that leaving someone behind was never acceptable. When the link ended, she stumbled back, breathless. No one had ever overwhelmed her like that. He didn't ask if she was impressed. He simply said, "That's who I am. Make of it what you will." After that, they spoke often, not formally but in passing moments, in shadows between trials. He told her about the seas of Earth, the cities ruined and rebuilt, the cultures too chaotic to catalog. He spoke of music played after funerals and the jokes soldiers told before suicide missions. He never tried to impress her. He just told the truth. Zelia began questioning everything she believed about strength, about worth, about what kind of legacy he deserved to survive. He was not like the others. He didn't speak in riddles or hide behind protocol. He carried no pedigree, no ancient name. But in every conversation, he gave her something no one else had: authenticity. And for the first time in her long, burdened life, she didn't feel like a relic. She felt seen. The final ceremony was set beneath the twin moons of El-Sarath, the sky fracturing with crystalline auroras. The last trial was simple: choice. Zelia would name the one she deemed worthy. The contenders gathered, masked in courtesy, but thick with tension. They all sensed the inevitable, that the human might actually be chosen. It wasn't acceptable. One of the highborn suitors, Lord Vale of the Zenith Corps, made his move. He had prepared a failsafe, hidden under layers of diplomatic code. A psychic contagion designed to wipe Elias from existence and destabilize Zelia's fragile mind in the process. If he couldn't win her, he'd destroy the game. The virus activated mid-ceremony. A pulse tore through the chamber, invisible to most. Zelia flinched as her mental defenses shuddered. Elias moved faster than anyone had time to react. He didn't shout or hesitate. He ripped a shield module from a fallen guard's arm and bolted straight for the central nexus where the pulse was focused. Security tried to stop him. He didn't let them. He reached the power core just as it began to overload. No plan, no approval, just instinct. He triggered a cascade loop, absorbing the feedback into his suit, rerouting the discharge through himself. Every nerve lit up. He should have died. He didn't. When the chaos settled, the chamber was in ruins, the suitors fled, and Zelia stood amid smoke and silence, watching the last man she hadn't yet dismissed lie broken at the altar meant for victory. She walked to him, knelt beside him. No crown, no pretense. "You fool," she whispered. Elias opened his eyes slowly. "Burned, bleeding, but alive. You didn't think I'd miss your decision, did you?" She laughed then, hoarse, cracked, real. She hadn't laughed like that in 100 years. With the galaxy watching, she turned from the throne and offered her hand, not as royalty to subject, but as equal to equal. "This is not a coronation," she said. "It is a beginning, and I choose the one who chose not power or safety, but life." Even when it wasn't his own, gasps rippled through the crowd, but none dared speak. Elias took her hand, grimacing through pain. "Well," he muttered, "you're not the easiest woman to impress." She smiled. "And you're not the kind I was supposed to choose." They stood together, not as queen and consort, but as the spark of something new. A union not forged by politics or desperation, but mutual defiance of what was expected. The rite ended, not in tradition, but in transformation. And somewhere, far from thrones and trials, the stars burned a little brighter. Because one soldier who should have died lived, and one woman who was supposed to be the last wasn't.